Hi, this is Jennifer from Buckner, Kentucky, and you're listening to Scandal Water,
where the tea is hot and the conversation lively.
Your hosts, Candy
and Ashley,
will discuss a peculiar story somehow related to the entertainment industry. This podcast might not change the world, but it just might satisfy your thirst for an intriguing tale.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Ashley.
hello.
We are back for our final episode of the month.
Yes.
And our part 2 of the episode we started last week.
This has been a really good theme.
It really has.
Mhm.
I didn't realize exactly how good it was going to be, but
Yeah.
I think we're going to end on a juicy note, if you
Yeah,
will. We
your
got a lot
teaser
of
last
controversy
week.
to talk about.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let's start with something uplifting because in last week's episode, you mentioned Craig Ferguson's uplifting talk about
Yes.
the Britney Spears situation.
Yes.
And before we recorded this, you opened it up and we watched it together.
We played it, yeah.
Let's just talk briefly about
All
it.
right.
I thought it was, what's the word?
Do you see why I like him?
Yeah, it was so heartfelt.
Mm-hmm.
It was so kind.
Mm-hmm.
What he said, I think it was trailblazing in a way because he straight up said,
We need to do better.
We need to do better.
Mhm.
And I mean, he did keep coming back to himself. He would say, I can
Yes.
only speak for myself.
Right.
And he got very vulnerable, very
Yes.
personal, talked about his own battle with alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
But he basically said, we have a responsibility when people are suffering and they're struggling with something. That is not the time
to make fun of them.
to make fun of them or kick them when they're down.
Yeah.
That is not okay.
And he talked about something, I told you it was something similar to when you and I started this podcast, where he talked about he had made fun of Kevin Costner. Now this is an old clip. I don't know what was happening in Kevin Costner's life,
Right.
but he had made fun of him for something. And then he said that he saw him at an event and he could see in his face, he could see in Kevin Costner's face that Kevin made the decision to extend grace to him and be kind to him. And it really freaked Craig Ferguson out because it made it real to him.
Yes.
You know, it was a headline and he made a joke about a headline, but this was a real person.
And he said it was very personal because here's this man there with his family.
Right,
And
right.
and he ridiculed him
Right.
publicly.
Right. And we
Yeah.
don't know about what, but I looked at you, I was like, that's kind of like when we started this podcast. It's all fun and games to talk about people or laugh about people, but these are real people. And we have to be so careful about what we say about them because even if they are ridiculous, Herb Stempel comes to mind. But Herb
Callback to
callback
season 1, I think.
really far back, the game show controversy, but he has family. And just because we think something he did was ridiculous, they have to live with that. And when we do our podcasts, we try to keep that in mind. At least I hope that we
Yes.
keep that in mind and present things and say it's our opinion based on the information we're given in this moment, but it still makes it real.
It does. It does. Yeah. It was beautifully done.
It was.
He spoke for like 12 minutes.
It was a long
and
one.
He walked a fine line between talking about the issue and then also sharing his own personal story. He kind of brought them together there.
Yeah.
And it was really good.
We'll include it in the show notes, even
Yeah,
though it won't have
absolutely.
anything to do with what you're going to talk about. I think it's an important piece of history, talk show history, to watch.
Yes. Yes, I like it. Well, when I was planning this, did not realize we were going to start with that, which was already uplifting. But knowing we were going to get into some controversial topics, I had in my mind that we did need to start with something kind of fun and light and uplifting before we got into the juicy stuff. So I thought I would begin with a little clip again. This one from a bit we referenced in our last show, Stupid Pet Tricks.
Okay.
So this is so short. What I'm going to do is play for you one stupid pet trick. Actually, watch because I may have to have you tell the audience
What it is?
what happened because they're not going to be able, obviously, to see everything
Yeah.
that occurred. This is called Dog Flips Biscuit to Dog.
Okay.
She flips a biscuit back to him off her nose.
Oh,
and he
I've done
catches
that.
it in the air.
There's Elsa. There's Gabriel. All right,
Ready?
here we go. The biscuit's in
Watching.
place. There it is. On the snout.
It's calm.
Here we go.
Wait. Toss it.
Elsa ate it herself.
She's like, what's happening?
Gabe is thinking, how come I'm not in the front of this line?
Gabe is mad.
Don't pull that again, all right?
We're leaving you with David if you do.
Okay, here we go.
Stay.
Try it one more time.
Yeah. Oh.
Is that not the cutest?
Elsa said, "This is my moment."
She's like, this biscuit isn't mine. I am not passing it on to
Nope.
Gabe. Oh, so cute. I always loved Stupid Pet Tricks. I
They're
thought
so
they were
silly.
so good. I was always excited when they would come on. But, all right. So, when we left off, we were talking about the fact that Johnny Carson was getting towards the end of his road in terms of hosting the Tonight Show, and the NBC execs were thinking about the replacement. And I mentioned that there was something of a secret deal.
Yes.
Okay. So here's what happened. Now, a lot of this again comes from that series that I mentioned in the last episode. Excellent source. You need to check this out if you're interested in any of this. It's a CNN series called The Story of Late Night. Okay. And what they share is that when they went to re-up Jay Leno's guest hosting contract, they went ahead and put a little clause in there that said when Johnny Carson left, Jay Leno got to take over.
Really?
Yeah, whenever he stepped down, Jay got to be the successor.
And who made this decision?
Well, the NBC execs.
Oh.
Now, here's the thing. This was not something that was publicized, right? This was a secret deal. On this documentary, the vice president of NBC at this time spoke to this. He was the one who actually shared that it was done as part of this contract, right? The guest hosting contract. But then that same guy went on to say, quote, dealing with Dave had become bothersome and draining, and he could be unnecessarily rude to network people, not just me. So did that factor into my decision as to going with Jay Leno over Dave Letterman? You bet it did.
So do you think that Dave felt too comfortable?
Well, I think that Dave was just Dave. He'd been
Yeah.
on the network forever. He'd
Yeah.
been doing his show. And I think that in his day-to-day dealings, he could sometimes be abrasive. I
Okay.
think that's maybe kind of who he was. The NBC president at that time also spoke in the documentary, and he added that they knew Jay would be easier to deal with, easier to control in terms of filling that spot. And he said, he used this term that they knew that it would be more of a partnership if they went with Jay. So to me, it sounds like Dave had burned some bridges. That the people he was working with, the higher ups, didn't find him really easy to get along with.
Yeah.
So Jay Leno was announced the successor, but nobody had ever really communicated with Dave. Like, he'd never had a chance to make his case.
Yeah.
He'd never had a chance to even talk about being the successor.
To say, I can change, I'll work with you all.
Yeah. It said in the documentary that when they did meet with Dave to tell him Jay Leno is going to be the new Tonight Show host, but hey, we want you to continue in your same slot, supposedly he got up and walked out. So Jay Leno started the Monday after Johnny Carson said goodbye on that Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And his first few months were wobbly. And in fact, the executives were actually questioning their decision. Like, did we make the right call? Yeah. Meanwhile, you've got Jay over here. It's kind of a little, not going so well. And then Dave Letterman is really unhappy. And people know, right? I mean, this battle for the spot was pretty well known. So Dave starts getting offers from other networks. And this is when CBS ends up luring Dave Letterman over to their network with a salary deal that was more than 4 times what Jay Leno was getting paid. Yeah. And of course, they put him in an
Right at the same
11:30
time.
time slot so that he would go right up against Jay. Yeah. And in the beginning, Dave's show was extremely successful. In fact, it was the first time in history, in terms of the history of late night talk shows, that NBC was not in first place.
Ooh.
So this, of course, worries NBC. They said that Jay Leno struggled for almost 2 years to really find his footing. To get back on top. Meanwhile, to replace Dave Letterman in that 12:30 time slot on NBC, they were considering all these different people: Gary Shandling, Dana Carvey, Jon Stewart, and then there was a guy named Conan O'Brien who caught their eye.
Yeah.
Conan was a writer for The Simpsons, but also for SNL, which is how Lorne Michael knew him, and Lorne is the one who really advocated for Conan. They set him up for an audition. They brought him in. He had mock guests. One of those was Jason Alexander, because I saw a little clip, and they liked him.
Aw.
They liked his quirkiness. They liked his
Yeah.
humor. He gets the job, and his sidekick was Andy Richter. Did you ever watch Conan?
A little bit. Not a lot.
Not a lot. Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I was watching Craig Ferguson.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to set his show apart from Dave Letterman's, they went a little sillier, which again, it seems like whatever changes they make, it always seems to appeal to the younger generation because again, people liked him. Now, it's interesting because in the beginning, his ratings weren't so great until Conan got support from a very unexpected person. Dave Letterman came on the show.
Oh, well, that's really nice of him.
Well, it was, but I think this is Candy's interpretation. I think it was also a little bit of a stab against Jay Leno.
Like, I'll support Conan, but not you.
Yeah, exactly. But he was very complimentary of Conan. That was one thing that they said was kind of a turning point. The other thing that really helped turn the tide for Conan was the producers realized he was killing it with college age kids in particular. The younger demographic was loving it, and these older execs hadn't put it together yet that like, oh, hey, he's got this demographic. You know, he's really making it work with them. So Jay over here, remember we said he'd been struggling. What turned it around for him was that he realized he was trying to be Johnny. He was trying to just kind of slide right into his spot and not be himself.
Yeah.
So they brought on a new producer named Debbie Vickers. She was really instrumental in revamping the set, and they made changes to play to Jay's strengths. For example, he was really good at the monologues. So they extended the monologue. You know, they found ways to make this work for him. And then what they say is really the turning point in terms of an interview for Jay Leno was when something really, really sensational happened in 1995. Do you remember what happened?
Was it Hugh Grant?
It was.
Was that the turning point
They
for him?
say that is exactly when it happened for him.
What were you thinking? Isn't that what he
Yes.
says? What
yeah,
were you thinking?
Absolutely. They said that it was so tricky. You know, here's Hugh coming on. This is such a touchy subject,
Yeah.
such a, you know, very sensational, but also awkward kind of thing to
Yeah.
handle. How do you navigate this as a talk show
Yeah.
host? And they said that this was the moment that Jay Leno became the voice of the viewers. And, you know, like he became more like Carson. He became more this guy that you trusted that, yeah. And so that was it. From that point on, pretty
Really?
much, Jay Leno and NBC took back over the top spot again. And Dave Letterman actually admitted that he suffered through some depression for a time
Wow.
because, you know, this little battle was going on. So, skipping ahead, as the time is passing, more late night talk shows are being added to the mix. You have things like The Daily Show on Comedy Central that came on in 1996. You have Jimmy Kimmel Live that started in 2003 on ABC. Craig Ferguson, The Late Late Show, started in 2005 on CBS. And that was the same year, actually, that The Colbert Report premiered on Comedy Central. So, I mean,
It's
many.
everywhere.
It's going everywhere, right? And everything's expanding because now you've got cable coming along.
Right.
Yes. But let's go back to Conan O'Brien. After a time, Conan's show had become so successful that other networks started offering him the 11:30 time slot to try to lure him away. Now, NBC did not want to lose Conan, but they also didn't want to lose Jay now because Jay's show is doing great. And they figured, you know what, he's going to want to retire at some point. So they came up with this plan that they thought was brilliant at the time. They decided to offer Jay an extension of 5 years with the understanding that at the end of that extension, when those 5 years were up, Conan would get to be the new host of The Tonight Show and Jay would basically retire. He would just go off. All right.
Yeah.
Now, Jay seemed a little hurt by this, but he seemed to accept it. I saw this. I saw a clip of this. In September of 2004, he openly talked about the plan on The Tonight Show. He was very complimentary. You know, The Tonight Show is like a dynasty. He didn't want anybody fighting over this. You know, he
Like
didn't want
it
any...
happened to him.
Exactly. He didn't want any nastiness. So he literally said, so you know what, buddy? You know, Conan, it's yours. I'll see you in 5 years, buddy. Okay. Just very, very gracious about it. Okay. The 5 years passed. Jay Leno is still killing it. The ratings are great. The NBC execs are like, we don't really like to force this guy out because he's doing great. Jay Leno didn't want to leave. He's on top. They're a little stuck. I mean, because meanwhile, the NBC president had made a promise to Conan O'Brien.
Yeah.
You know what? 5 years and you got this, buddy. You know, what are we going to do? So they start talking to each other. And Conan speaks to this in the documentary. He says, what adults thought this was a good plan? Like, who came up with this and thought this was going to fly, right? But the compromise they came up with was they were going to give Jay a primetime show that would air at 10 o'clock every night. And then you'd have the news. And then Conan would come on at 11:30 with The Tonight Show. And then Jimmy Fallon had been brought in to take over the 12:30 time slot that Conan had left.
Right.
So now he would be that last little show, the late night with Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
All right. Nobody loved this. I mean, I don't know. Jay probably did, but
Yeah.
but Conan did not love this.
Why wouldn't he like it? Because he's getting the Tonight Show.
I think he did, but he said, I'm still following
Jay.
Jay. And
basically it said they didn't keep their word, I would guess.
yeah, I think, that, and also I think he felt like it stole his thunder. It's like, you know what? We're saying we're giving you the Tonight Show,
But we're not.
Really, you're just like, the follow-up to the guy
That we really want.
that we know to be the face of the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy's show premiered first, came out in 2008. So then you had this little gap where Conan didn't have any show. And then after a few months, The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien premiered in June of 2009. And it was only on a few months when Jay's new primetime show premiered. And unfortunately, it was terrible.
Really?
Yeah, Jay's show bombed. In fact, it was actually labeled one of TV's 50 biggest bombs by Entertainment
I
Weekly.
wonder why. Was he doing the same thing just at 10 o'clock, or was it a different format?
I didn't watch it.
Okay.
But a comment somebody made was that you didn't want to see that at 10 o'clock. You had news, you had other things
Yeah.
going on. Like
Yeah.
that, like you want your late night talk show.
He just should have
in late
stuck to the
night.
plan.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, you mean he should have retired and just
Yeah.
like bowed out graciously?
Or in the original, because 5 years, you never know what's going to happen in 5 years. It sounds like the original agreement should have been 5 years, or when ratings start to slip. Like there should have been some language in there to where it wouldn't be, you said 5 years and it's 5 years.
So just to briefly comment on this, I don't know if I were Conan. I don't know that I would stick around if somebody said 5 years or whenever the ratings start to slip.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
what if that's like 10 or 15 years?
That's true.
On the flip side, remember Jay Leno didn't have a hand in making that deal.
Yeah.
Like he never agreed. Like
Yeah.
he just accepted what they told
What
him
they
they
told him.
had decided, and he didn't love it. But he was just like being a team player.
It seems weird. All of it seems odd and weird.
Yeah, for sure. So here's our situation now. Jay's got the primetime show,
10 o'clock, bombed.
but it's a bomb.
Yeah.
Conan's already not happy, but he's in the Tonight Show spot
Yeah.
that he's waited for forever. And that part he loves. He does love being
The host of the
Tonight Show. He said, I am part of history. This is a legendary thing. I mean, it just gave him chills. So there they are, but Jay's show is not making it. What are they going to do? And we'll talk about that when we come back from the break.
Oh, okay. There's not much we love more than spilling the tea with you every Tuesday. So, we've decided to occasionally take a moment to thank a few of our supporters who help make this possible.
Along with the fun, producing a weekly podcast also brings with it more time and expense than you might expect. Your financial generosity in becoming a member through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon, both of which can be found on our website or social media accounts, allows us to keep creating these episodes.
We'd like to extend our deepest gratitude to one of our current members, Sherry. As a thank you, Sherry and anyone else who becomes a Scandal Water supporter will receive perks like discounts on merch and access to exclusive bonus content, such as our minisodes.
If you'd like to hear your name on that roster, become a member using one of the links on social media or on our website, scandalwaterpodcast.com.
Until then, we lift our cup to you, Sherry.
Cheers! And we are back. And you know what? I need to clarify.
Yes.
I think this is actually the place where Conan spoke more pointedly about he did not call it idiocy, but you got the impression that he thought this plan was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember the Team Coco.
Oh,
something.
yes.
There was some kind of Team Coco thing.
Yeah. I don't think he was as hot over the Jay in the 10 o'clock time slot as he was right here, because here's what NBC decided to do. Rather than say, sorry, Jay, you had your chance, it didn't work, we're just going to have to let you go or find you something else. No, instead, they came to these fellas who were involved with this, late night talk show sequence here, and they decided that they were going to try to reconfigure everything. Jay was going to host the Tonight Show starting at the beginning of the show, and then Conan would take over hosting it like around 12:05.
What?
Uh-huh. And then
that
you
is
would,
ridiculous.
Right. And then you would still have Jimmy Fallon. He would come on around 1. So it was like this reconfiguration of
Everybody gets a half an hour.
or a little bit more, but still, right. It's like everybody gets a little piece.
No.
Y'all be happy, right?
Nobody's happy with that.
Well, and especially Conan. He was furious.
Yeah,
he
he
was
should be.
hurt. He had
Yeah.
been waiting all this time for
Yeah.
his chance. And then after only a few months, here's what they do to him.
Yeah.
So he released a very famous statement in which he called out the plan as being absurd
Yeah, it
and
is.
said it would hurt the legacy of The Tonight Show and that he refused to do it. So that's when,
Did he get fired?
well, he basically quit. Yeah, he was done.
You can't fire me. I quit.
Right, but that left Jay open to get The Tonight Show back. But in the meantime, there was this transition period where Conan was still hosting The Tonight Show.
Oh.
NBC couldn't do anything to him. He still had the money to spend. He had a budget, and he knew he was going out, and he decided to blow up as much as he could
Oh
on
my
his way.
goodness.
He would make jokes. He would buy frivolous, ridiculous things and say, and this is how much it cost. This is how much NBC is paying for this. I mean,
Wow.
he openly just lit that place on fire.
Wow.
Yes, and people responded to it. You're right. It was like people were taking
Talk about being the
sides.
legacy of The Tonight Show.
For sure. And he went on Dave Letterman's show and the two commiserated.
Oh,
Yes. So,
this is not good for PR for Jay.
well, no, he really took so many hits. Yeah. Oh, well, the other thing I didn't tell you, I didn't put this in my notes, but I'll share it. People had very strong opinions about this. In fact, Jimmy Kimmel was one of them. The powers that be, I don't know if it was Jay personally or the people on his show, but somebody invited Jimmy Kimmel to do like a bit on Jay's primetime show. And Jimmy agreed with the understanding that he wanted to speak about this little situation that had happened, with Conan and Jay and all the things. And so he was under the impression they had said yes, that was what he was going to be talking about. And then when they sent him the questions that he was going to be addressing, he realized they're totally ignoring this issue. They're just having me, talk about other things. It's just some other comedy bit, and he didn't like it. So I watched the clip of this. It is so incredibly uncomfortable. But here's Jay trying to do this bit. Jimmy Kimmel's on the screen being zoomed in or whatever. And every single time Jay asks him a question, like, tell me about a prank you've pulled, he would come in with some jab against Jay.
Oh, no.
It would be something like, well, this one time I played a prank by saying that I was going to leave a show, but then,
no.
I mean, no, it was so uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable. But my point is, people took sides.
Yeah.
Like this was
thing.
a thing. Yes. But he got his Tonight Show back and he started hosting again in 2010. Part of Conan's settlement with NBC was that he could not do anything on TV or radio for 8 months, but he was not prohibited from using social media. So he started a Twitter account and immediately just blew that up. Andy Richter commented that the two of them became something like folk heroes. So many people, so much of the public was outraged on their behalf.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, Conan was offered and accepted this offer from TBS to do an 11 o'clock show on their cable channel, which he also premiered in 2010. Okay. So Jay went on to host 4 more years, and then he decided it was time to step down in 2014. For his final goodbye, he actually quoted a little piece of what Johnny said, which was sweet. And in the meantime, I'm just going to kind of wrap this up really quickly, guys, because that's really how it ended with Jay and Conan. I think if you hear them talk, Jay will say everything's amicable with both the guys.
But is it really?
Well, I did hear Dave Letterman speak recently on a podcast, I think it was, and he said that when he thinks back during the time of the rivalry, he said his biggest emotion is embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like he feels embarrassed
Yeah.
over how it went down.
How everybody behaved.
Right. He said, yeah, he seemed to be calm now. He did not give the impression that he and Jay are close friends, but he seemed like he's pretty okay with things.
Yeah.
I don't know where Conan and Jay stand with each other. Conan did speak on this documentary and he was very calm, but I would not guess that they're friends.
Yeah.
But regardless, Jay has always said that he felt like things were amicable.
Well, I mean, it worked out for him. That's why he might think that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He got
Well,
his show back.
So regardless, just to kind of wrap up a few little things.
Yeah.
Lorne Michaels had helped Jimmy Fallon get his late night show.
Yeah.
And once it was time to find the replacement for Jay when he
Yeah.
stepped down.
Yeah.
At this point now, Lorne is executive producer for The Tonight Show.
Is he really?
Uh-huh. And
Oh.
he, again, helped Jimmy. So that's one of the reasons that Jimmy Fallon got the next gig as The Tonight Show host. Seth Meyers then stepped in to take over Jimmy's late night spot.
Another SNL person.
Another SNL person, exactly. And when Jimmy took over with The Tonight Show, he requested that they bring it back to where it began in the very same studio in New York, although, of course, they had to update it. And he also, as the other hosts had done, he also put his own brand on it because Jimmy's an entertainer. He sings, he does sketches, you know, he's a comedian. He put that little spin on it. In fact, somebody commented that what he does now is maybe a little bit more reminiscent of what Steve Allen did in the early
more
days.
of a variety. Yeah.
Yeah. But the documentary ends in a way that I liked. They point out how everything is different now. You have cable, you have streaming, you have the internet. People can watch whatever they want, whenever they want. A lot of people don't want to watch something long. They want to watch short things.
Right.
You have more diversity now. In the early days, you had Johnny who was very careful not to let you know his opinion. Nowadays, some hosts will be in trouble with the public if they don't share their opinions.
Right.
If they don't take a stand on something that the public thinks is really important to address, they'll cancel them. So, I mean, everything is different. In fact, I'm not going to go through everything, but, 2015 alone, you had Dave Letterman retire. His slot was filled with The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. That same year, Jon Stewart left The Daily Show. Trevor Noah came in, and I believe Trevor Noah's now gone. I mean, things have just changed so much, even within the last 10 years. Craig Ferguson, when he left, you had James Corden take over, but now James Corden is gone, and we have Taylor Tomlinson in his spot hosting a show called After Midnight. So just everything
seems like
has
they're
changed.
staying shorter amounts of time. There's not one person that's staying a long time. It's a faster turnover.
That's a good point. And one of the things that they'll say is, I mean, and I have to say, this is true of me too. Like, I used to watch late night talk shows all the time.
I don't anymore.
And now I don't. But what I do see are the clips.
Yep.
I see the clips on YouTube.
Yep.
And they say that's a big thing now is people watch
Making
these.
content for YouTube or social media clips.
Yeah.
Armchair psychologist.
So that brings us to the armchair. We have just spent all this time
Yes.
talking about late night talk shows, two-parter, and found out so much fascinating information. A sad note is they're actually in decline.
Yeah.
If part of it is because of what we just talked about. You have so many other options, or there's so many competing things. The expense, different factors contribute to this, but they are in a bit of a decline right now. So my question to you is, why do we need to keep them? What is it about talk shows, late night talk shows, that make them still important to us today?
Okay. Well, like we talked about earlier, they keep us company. They are a communal experience.
Yes.
As you're watching it together. We had that whole episode on memorable talk show moments that had real cultural touchstones in them. I think if they're run by the right personality, they can be really uniting for the country and for the viewers. They can be entertaining. And I mean, Craig Ferguson kept me company many a time. Has no idea who I am, but he was a very good friend of mine in one period of my life. So
Right.
I think they can be a comfort. They can be a lot of good things if the right people are running them. Some of this stuff that we've talked about, the Joan Rivers and the Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien and the way that was all handled, that's a little ridiculous.
But
So-
that was behind the scenes.
It was-
And as,
yeah, no,
and
no,
as
yeah,
viewers,
yeah.
we didn't know.
No, we
Yeah.
didn't know that as viewers, but it seems like let's get back to what works, guys.
Right. Well, and to add to that, I feel like I keep up with some of the talk shows through those
clips.
Yes, through those short little sound bites, those short little clips that are on YouTube or wherever they may be. And I would be sad to see them go away. Even if
Yeah.
I'm not watching the full-length episode, I still get the entertainment.
Yeah.
I still get the relationship, I think, with the host or
Yeah.
the different people who are involved with the show, but it's maybe in a different way.
I'd be interested just in an informal way to know from our listeners who's been your favorite late night talk show host.
We need to throw that out. We'll
We
do a
should.
little poll.
We should. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you
Yeah.
Team Coco, Team Dave, Team Craig Ferguson, which I am?
Yeah. Did you have any strong
Yeah.
feelings during the rivalry,
Yeah.
during the late night Tonight Show wars, if you will? Yeah. Okay. Well, some interesting questions.
Yeah.
We'll throw those out. But in the meantime, let's bring this to a close. Who are we going to cheers?
Ooh.
Okay, this is going to sound crazy because I haven't really talked about these people.
Well, in the words of Hans, I love crazy.
Oh, okay. Well,
Do you know what I mean from Frozen?
Yeah,
where
yes,
she says,
yes.
"Can I say something crazy? I love crazy.
I love
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't talk about them a lot because the hosts are the face.
Yeah.
The face of the show, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones who have the big names. But time and time again, as we would be talking about or listening to these behind the scenes stories and learning about the success of a show, a lot of times it would come back to this hardworking writer or producer behind the scenes who had enough sense to say, hey, Jay, let's revamp this to play to your strengths. Or, ooh, you know, Conan, you're feeling a little wobbly right now, but you're great at this. Let's go this way. You know.
Yeah.
So how about a shout out, a cheers to those people behind the scenes who have helped make our talk shows.
The good decisions.
Yeah, these late night talk shows great or, you know, entertaining us for 70 some years.
Wow. Yeah. Cheers to them.
Cheers. If you love what we do, please rate and review our show or become a supporter through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. Whether a single gift or recurring monthly donation, your support is what allows us to keep the tea brewing.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast app or the Scandal Water Podcast YouTube channel, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Show notes are available at our website, scandalwaterpodcast.com, where you can also access the merch store and more.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown.
That's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music. Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reeve, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening.